I can already tell I'm not gonna like this one. See, I knew it. No, not that. This sounds like the type of keyboard that my husband used to play on, and it would make me really upset being near him.
Is that true?
Oh, yeah.
Also, shout out Josh. If you like this style of video, I've done a very similar one with Josh.
Definitely
Okay,
would get me
so
kicked out of the office.
Clicky is off the table, so you don't get kicked out of the office.
With clickies out, this left us between linears and tactile, which is a very common choice.
I think I like this one because it's quiet. Like, if I cover my ears.
You like the feel of a tactile bump, but maybe
Yeah.
not the aggressive sound
Yeah.
of that specific case build.
Yes.
Okay. That's the amazing thing about keyboards is that with sound, you can customize basically everything by adding foam, removing foam, lubing
Oh, yeah.
switches.
Okay.
You ever heard of lube?
Mhm.
Am I allowed to make those jokes around girls?
Mhm.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Now, with the Switch feel, decided there was actually still one problem we had to resolve with a trick up my
8 Sleep pod cover. It's a liquid-cooled mattress topper that is clinically proven to give you better sleep. So let me tell you why I love it so much. First off,
sleep.
There's actually a fourth type of keyboard. Give that a shot real fast.
Oh, yeah. Look, do you hear that?
Do you hear that? You don't, because it's a silent keyboard.
It's so nice.
Now, silent keyboards are silent because of their switches, and you can actually have tactile or linear silent switches.
Yeah, I like this.
Okay, perfect.
So we've narrowed it down to silent tactile switches, and I'll be getting back to the exact switch later.
But first, we have to figure out something even more important, and that's layout. What size keyboard do you even want?
Size?
Size. Because if you looked at all of those keyboards that you tried, you might have noticed some of them are maybe missing keys.
Now, in order to pick your keyboard, you actually need to know what size keyboard you want. So the best way to do that is figure out what keys you want to get rid of. Then, for picking your keyboard, you need to figure out what fits in your budget. Now, obviously, you will know what keys you need the best. And a lot of you might be saying, Hipyo, I need a numpad. Numpads are essential. Well, there are plenty of full-size keyboards out there, like the Keychron Q6, but they are a little bit more uncommon when it comes to custom keyboards. So what a lot of people do is they get a really nice custom keyboard, and then they get a separate numpad for if they want to bring it to work or something.
What do you want to sacrifice?
This is like just that.
Okay.
Now, even more important than finding your keyboard layout is finding keycaps that actually fit it. So I'll be talking about that later.
All right, Regina.
Oh my gosh.
Now, based on Regina's preferences, I've picked out a keyboard from my sponsor Newfie, which is the Gem 80.
If you're doing your own research and trying to find a keyboard at home, then just go on the layout, budget, and fun features journey.
Sounds fun.
Now, what is that journey, you might ask? Well, because keyboards are so preferenced, I can't tell you exactly what keyboard to buy. I can just show you a lot of keyboards that I think are cool. You can get a heavy keyboard made out of aluminum or a high-quality keyboard made out of polycarbonate. There's features like knobs and screens and software and Hall effect switches, and just figure out what you like the best.
Now, let's start with the keyboard, and then we'll get into the other stuff first.
Why are there so many different boxes?
Don't worry, we'll start with the keyboard.
Why can't I just be in one?
We're
All right,
gonna
fine. All right,
start with the
fine,
keyboard.
fine. I'll do it. Ugh. Wow, they make you work for it. Huh? Okay. All right. Paperwork, whatever.
That's the spirit.
Ooh. Ooh. It's a little cleaning action.
Microfiber cloth.
Do I need to read to be good at keyboards?
Yeah, I think that's like a bare minimum requirement, actually.
Oh, that's cool. Oh.
Cable.
Wait, this is perfect because
Oh, don't stretch it like that. Oh my God.
Now, the Gem 80 is actually a really interesting keyboard because it gives you so many different options for how to build it, and I think that's really what sets it apart in the beginner keyboard space. These are ways that you can customize the sound and the feel of your keyboard, and you probably won't care about them as much as a beginner, but eventually you might actually really care. Now, at $150 for the bare bones version of this keyboard, it isn't exactly budget friendly at all, and in fact, there are other keyboards that are a much better value. However, what this keyboard does offer...
Hashtag gem series.
Wait, really?
Hashtag gem series.
No way, they put a hashtag on the box.
Hashtag.
Is the ability to add on switches and keycaps for a very affordable price, which makes the full build actually quite competitive. Now, as I mentioned before, Newfie is a sponsor, so I'll have everything linked down below, but I do want you to know that when I work with a keyboard brand, they cannot alter what I say, and they do not review my final video. So all of my thoughts are my own. Now, this is just one example of a 10-keyless keyboard that you can go with, but if you want to build it yourself, I do think that the add-ons that Newfie offers are more compelling than some of the other brands. Like, I like their switches and keycaps more than I like Keychrons, for example. Now, if all of that is a little bit too overwhelming, then we'll just take it back one step and get to building the keyboard itself.
But how do you think you're gonna build it?
I don't know. Well, maybe put more of these things in. The switches. Like, those gotta be in there. They gotta go first, right? And then you do the little keycaps. And then you click that, click that.
Okay. Now, earlier, you did find out your favorite switch preference. These right here are Wuche Studio's silent tactile switches. Now,
Ooh.
no sound.
Oh, yeah. You
Nothing.
hear that? It's silent.
Now, silent switches are rapidly becoming very popular because people realize that even though Thocky keyboards are incredible, getting fired is not.
Yeah.
In a way, I kind of see keyboards like cars, where if you're customizing your car, that's great.
Yeah.
But if you customize your car and you remove your like muffler or whatever and you make your car loud as hell,
It's cool.
you're a terrible person.
No, it's cool.
You
Don't listen to me.
suck.
No, you're really cool.
If your car makes loud vroom vroom noises
You're really, really
and you
cool.
drive around in public with it,
You're really
I
cool.
hate you.
No, I love you. It's really cool.
You're literally the scum.
I like my cars loud and my keyboard silent.
So first step is you're gonna take these switches and
Please, sir.
how do you think you put them into the keyboard?
Well, if I'm modeling what I see here, well, I'm just gonna smush it in.
That's backwards.
Oh.
It's
What
backwards.
do you mean backwards? It's a square.
There you go.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Ah! Oh.
There, you put your first switch in.
Yes. And how many more to go? Like too many to count?
80.
An obnoxious amount?
86 more to go.
Why can't it just come, made the way?
Okay, anyways, we're gonna take this and we're gonna perform some magic. Ready?
Wow!
Yeah, the magic is a lie. You actually have to put in all 86 switches yourself.
You're not gonna just do it behind camera?
I'll stay behind camera and you do it.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Sorry, have fun.
Ugh.
Now, Regina, it's very important. Why do you look so mad?
What now? I don't have patience.
It's really important when you put in your switches that you make sure that the pins on the switches are not bent. You see this switch, how one of the metal pins is bent? If you were to put this into your keyboard, you would have a chance that you'd either pop out the socket or the switch just won't work.
So do I have to check all of these?
It's very
Recently, and for no reason at all, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due.
important to check your switches before putting them in.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm checking.
This has become like my video with like the most attitude of any video I've
Are
ever
you
filmed.
surprised? You know me.
I'm not surprised.
Also, just one last thought on switches. When buying a switch, there's factory lubed and unlubed switches. I recommend for your first time going with factory lube switches and seeing how you like them. However, there is a pretty big spectrum for factory lubing, so I recommend you look up a sound test of the switch beforehand.
Woo!
You might notice there is something very important missing.
Keys.
The keycaps! Now, as far as keycaps goes, there's a few very important things that you need to know so you don't waste your money. Number one is layout.
Now, there's actually a subcategory for keyboard layouts, like the bottom row could have different sized keys between the same 65% keyboard. Look out for your bottom row keys, your spacebar, and your shift key.
You'll see these little layout pictures. You just need to make sure that the keys are gonna fit. Number two is material, because there's a bunch of different keycap materials. There's PBT, ABS, there's even metal keycaps, but we don't talk about these anymore. There's also different profiles. Like, you notice how this one is entirely flat across the whole entire row?
Yep.
On this board, it's not, and they actually set it like an angle. This is cherry profile, which is the most normal, but then you've got a bunch of weird stuff, and really at the end of the day, it all comes down to preference. Ultimately, if you have no idea what to get, I recommend you start with cherry profile keycaps just because they're the most widely available and also the least offensive. This is what I use every single day, but some people swear by other profiles and other keycap materials, and just try a bunch of different stuff and find out what you like the best. You can always buy something from Amazon and then return it. I didn't tell you to do that though.
Now, a little while ago, I gave Regina this octopus themed desk mat, and she's in love with it and wants this keyboard to be themed around it. So,
I just want cool looking keycaps because everybody else is going to see them and be like, wow, so cool. They're not going to feel them.
Well, there's actually a keycap set that is supposed to go with this keyboard, so I'll let you start and tell me if you like this set or not.
Are they cool or do they suck?
Let's find out.
Hashtag gems.
Oh, wait.
These are really pretty. I like the lilac. I feel like it goes really well, like the colors.
Now, these are the Gem MSA keycaps, which typically sell for 34 bucks, but if you buy this keyboard, then they're only 15, which makes them unbelievably cheap. They're pretty solid double shot PBT keycaps, however, they're at a weird profile.
Okay, so there's been a new development. Even though you at home, if you're buying this keyboard, should probably go with the Gem keycaps, considering they're literally only $15, so they're a great value, provided you can get over the weird profile. Regina couldn't get over the weird profile. I found a keycap set, Polycaps Octopus or something, that perfectly matches the desk mat. So we're gonna be going with the Octopus keycaps. The super easy part is just putting them on. So we don't even need to film this. We're just gonna use magic.
There's no magic.
Magic is real. Please subscribe for more magic. She's lying. Okay. Wee woo, wee woo. Bent pin alert. Bent pin alert. So you know how earlier I mentioned
No.
bent pins?
No, you didn't.
We were testing the keyboard to see if it works, and uh-oh. If one of your keys doesn't work on a keyboard that you just built, there's a good chance that you bent a pin.
I didn't do anything wrong.
Now, fixing it is super easy with some tweezers. Bend it back. I'm trying to do this one-handed. This is really difficult. I'm really talented, though. There you go.
Now, with keycaps, it's also worth noting budget. Like, there's really fancy keycaps like GMK, but honestly, I think they're a tinge overpriced. But generally, the rule of thumb is if you want the sounds to be a little bit deeper, you go with Dye-Sub PBT or a really tall profile keycap. And if you want the board to sound a bit clackier, then you should go with a double shot keycap or something made out of ABS. Now, your problem if you thumb is if you want the sounds to be a little bit deeper, you go with Dye-Sub PBT or a really tall profile keycap. And if you want the board to sound a bit clackier, then you should go with a double shot keycap or something made out of ABS. Now, you're probably wondering what I think of the Gem 80, considering I am looking at this keyboard for Regina to build it as her first keyboard. Now, personally, I think it's a little bit overpriced, as you could get a fully built keyboard with similar specs for about $106 US, although you are making some cuts like software and everything like that. But what this keyboard does do differently that I think is really unique is having everything available right on the site when you purchase it. There is something to be said about letting you have the choice of your switches and keycaps, but then also letting you build it yourself. And then also not having to do the research yourself is a bit of a perk, as I've noticed a lot of you just want me to tell you exactly what to buy. Jeez. But it's time for Regina to take it for a spin and see, was it worth all of the trouble building a custom keyboard?
Okay.
Woo!
I'm actually amazed with how clean this looks.
It looks so good. I love all the different purples.
Yeah.
I think it's so good. I want to go use it right now.
Okay, let's do a type test.
Oh, well, I'm not good at typing. Let's play Fortnite. Oh my gosh. It's so quiet. I'm so excited. I'm gonna be the coolest girl in office.
Yeah!
People aren't even gonna know that I'm typing in office. They're gonna be like, oh my gosh, girl, like, did you get that report done? It sounded like you were doing nothing over there. I was typing.
Compared to your old keyboard,
Which I need to say, I'm very grateful.
please do not fire Regina.
Yeah, I really like my job. Like, I don't even want to, like,
You built a custom keyboard, you found your preferences. What do you have to say for yourself?
I'm really happy. This is really good. Silent. Thank you, Hipyo. I learned a lot today.
If you have to give one piece of advice to somebody building their first keyboard, what would it be?
Be really good friends with Hipyo. Or if you can't do that, follow his YouTube at least.
Yay!
He didn't pay me to say that.
It's nothing, because it's a quiet keyboard.
Question: would you build a website for a major brand with more than 200 million users using Wix? Well, we did. Hi, I'm
All right, sit down for this one, because I'm about to say something controversial. And, oh God, no, not that. Keychron is not the best keyboard. Now, for some of you, this is obvious, but for a lot of people, they Google best custom keyboard and Keychron pops up. And while Keychron is a fantastic, good enough keyboard, what if you wanted something that was just a little bit better? But wait, Hippio, that means I'm gonna have to build a keyboard myself, and I'm gonna have to pick out switches, and I'm gonna get overwhelmed, and no. Howdy hey. I'm Hippio Tech, and I try keyboards so you don't have to. So in this video, I'm gonna be trying a pre-built keyboard that's supposedly better than a Keychron, the Keychron Max series. And I'm gonna be putting it to the test so that you can see that maybe you wanna do a little bit more research. And I know what you're thinking, there's no way a keyboard that you buy will be as good as a keyboard that you build. And while you are sacrificing a few things, which are important, and I'll talk about those later, you're still getting something that sounds like, dare I say, heaven? Now, in this video, I'll be looking at the Sword 68. This is a keyboard from my sponsor, Vermilo, and whenever I work with a keyboard brand, they cannot review my video, they cannot tell me what to say, and all of my thoughts are my own. However, they have given me a link that I'll put down in the description. This keyboard is interesting in a few different ways, and not the unboxing kind of way, because there's just a braided cable, some spare keycaps, and 2.4 gigahertz dongle. Now, at first, Vermilo asked me to review this keyboard, and they sent me it, and I said, no, your keyboard is ugly. The reason being is that they sent me the blue Arial version. However, this is the lilac. Also, just between you and me, we're not going to talk about the Arial version. It's horrifically ugly, Vermilo. I have no idea why you released that. I mean, you see why all my thoughts are my own? I'm sorry, guys. Now, you're probably wondering what makes this keyboard unique and what makes it special, Hippio. It just looks like an average 65% keyboard made out of aluminum. Well, the first thing is the price, because this comes in at $219 US. Now, a few years ago, that would actually be a fair price for a bare bones keyboard. However, we're in 2024, and usually you can get a pre-built keyboard for half the price. So what makes this thing unique? Now, I will come out and say, this is not a budget keyboard. So if you're on a budget, this really isn't for you, and there are alternatives that will give you more value. However, there are some things that they've done here that make it feel a little bit higher quality. Not the sticker though. The first of which being this nice aluminum weight on the back. It's engraved, but you just can't see it because of my lighting conditions. Like, you can almost see it here if you squint, but it looks really nice. The second is something that you have to hear. You hear how it doesn't sound like a blacksmith's anvil? Well, it actually seems like they're using a much more solid aluminum for this build. And overall, the build quality and the finish feels remarkably premium. Like, this feels closer to my Sangeo 65 than it does to my Womier 71. Which actually raises a pretty interesting question, because they've priced this thing eerily close to the Keychron Q2 Max. So later in this video, I'll be putting that to the test, because there's no way it's better, right? Keychron is the best keyboard, right? Now, definitely Really the one place where I feel like they cut corners was with the keycaps. These are double shot keycaps, and they are of relatively decent quality. Like, this feels closer to my Sangeo 65 than it does to my Womier 71. This feels closer to my Sangeo 65 than it does to my Womier 71. Which actually raises a pretty interesting question, because they've priced this thing eerily close to the Keychron Q2 Max. So later in this video, a Keyshot keycap based on case, absolutely gorgeous. I loved perfect quality ABS keycaps. The dual tone case, I'm sorry.
Remarkable 2 is a paper tablet that feels like you're writing on paper, and unlike...
Sorry, guys. Now, you're probably wondering what makes this keyboard unique and what makes it special, Hipio. It just looks like an average 65% keyboard made out of aluminum. Well, the first thing is the price, because this comes in at $219 US. Now, a few years ago, that would actually be a fair price for a bare bones keyboard. However, we're in 2024, and usually you can get a pre-built keyboard for half the price. So what makes this thing unique? Now, I will come out and say, this is not a budget keyboard. So if you're on a budget, this really isn't for you, and there are alternatives that will give you more value. However, there are some things that they've done here that make it feel a little bit higher quality. Not the sticker, though. The first of which being this nice aluminum weight on the back. If you hear how it doesn't build, and overall the build quality and the 5 question, because they've priced this thing. I'll be keyboard keycaps, base tone case. Getting kind of bored of Kale switches, a step in the right direction. Board only wowed me, but these Kale Prestige voice switches are definitely a step in the right direction, because the factory lubing feels absolutely great. Now, the first con is that this board only comes with linear switches, so if you're tactile or clicky gang, then this board just isn't for you, because they don't. So if you're tactile or clicky gang, then this board just isn't for you, because they don't sell a bare bones version of it. And I really wish they did. I asked them to, and they said no. And here's the biggest con of the whole entire board. It supports 2.4 gigahertz wireless. However, you have to remove the caps lock to turn it on and off, kind of similar to the Rainy 75. This is just woefully impractical if you're someone that turns your keyboard on and off frequently or uses it in different modes throughout the day, so that's a huge L for your productivity. However, this did inspire me to pull out my desk mat, which is my pick. This do feel actually a little bit of flex, and it feels relatively nice to type on, but you're not getting like pillow gaskets or anything like that. However, what I will say is the switches do feel buttery smooth, and it does sound really nice. Which actually brings me to talking about some of its competition, because if you're on a hyper budget, as I mentioned before, you can get something like the Womier SK71. However, if you're on a similar budget, then you might just be inclined to get the Keychron Q2 because you want a pre-built keyboard and you don't want to wait the time of a group buy. Now, the Q2 Max, which is the wireless version, is $10 cheaper than this board. However, what I noticed immediately is the anviliness. Like, the build quality on this Varmilo is shockingly better. However, one place where Keychron does win is the software, because it supports QMK and VIA, whereas Varmilo supports Varmilo, which is definitely not the greatest software in the world. It sucks. However, a side-by-side comparison also reveals that this sounds and feels better than the Keychron. I mean, the Keychron will sound and feel great once you mod it, but this is completely stock. Now, I haven't actually made a dedicated video on the Keychron Max series, or really any of their newer ones, just because I'm kind of unimpressed. Like, Keychron's quality really peaks with the Q series, and then once you get past that, it's all kind of the same board, but for a more expensive price. But a lot of people still buy
It has long been thought that the more tactile a switch is, the better it must be, so much so that the entire light tactile category has been dismissed. But as great as switches like the U4Ts and Holy Pandas are, for some, a more subtle approach to tactility can be even more satisfying. So in this video, we're going to look at our top picks for light tactile switches that offer just a tinge of tactility. First up on our list is the WS Light Tactile. Not exactly the most creative name out there, but an important thing to note is that these switches are designed by Wucha Studio. If that name sounds familiar, it's probably because you've heard of their other big hit, the WS Mirandy linears. The Mirandys have become one of the most popular creamy switches on the market, and for good reason. They've got a smooth, buttery keystroke that's hard to beat. But now Wucha Studio is bringing that. Now let's talk about the Akko Lavender Purple Pro switch, our budget-friendly pick that punches well above its weight class. The Lavender Purple Pros are all about balance. These switches feature a satisfying, yet not overwhelming tactile bump, and a higher pitched, snappy sound profile. I find a crisp, polished sound with them, and to me, the feel is really quite bouncy, which I'm a big fan of. It's a bit heavier than the light tactile description. Here's the sound test. Now let's talk about the most unique switch today, the Sometimes when you want some subdued tactile. Now let's talk about the switch that takes the top spot for the best overall light tactile, the KTT Matcha. I know the name might make you think of a green tea, but these switches are actually more of a neon green. KTT Matcha. I know the name might make you think of a green tea, but these switches are actually more. It's the safest choice by far. Take a listen to these matchas. Now here are back-to-back sound tests of all the switches we talked about today.
Coming up with cool stuff.
Finding the correct gaming setup can be hard, and sometimes you can pick wrong and end up with overpriced garbage, but that's where I come in. You're trying
The 8 Sleep Pod Cover. It's a liquid-cooled mattress topper that is clinically proven to give you better sleep. So let me tell you.
these features. You can see if you have an additional PCB that was attached things a bit differently, because technically its case is the top plate. There's the PCB and the additional module that I showed earlier. There is a very thin piece of dampening foam which has a lot of cutouts for all the standoffs. Surprisingly, there is some rubber mounts under. So how easy is it to clean these keyboards with little time and effort? A regular person should be able to look at these keyboards without being repulsed by it. For the The 60HE, one of the biggest drawbacks is that it sits lower inside the case. Ideally, I want to give this a quick clean without removing the keycaps if I can get away with it, but even after brushing, there will still be a lot of dirt still remaining. The top plate of the Apex Pro Mini sits flush up against the case, which means that brushing out the dirt with the keycaps on is still an option. The downside for both of the Apex Pro Mini and 60HE though is that dirt can get underneath the plate and the PCB. The Husband Mini is by far the easiest though, you just give it a brush and all the dust and other hazardous materials are swept away, as there's little to no gas
Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. It turns out one of the fastest growing segments of people signing up for Mint are people.
Well, this video is definitely a first for me. Even though I've worked with more than my fair share of gaming keyboards and broke a few more of them than I times. It would be shipping with either bot. A bit of time to get rolling rate. The typing are sold as being silent, solid aluminum, producing a deeper.
I tried the Rainy 75. Let me ask you a question. Do you like how this keyboard sounds?
Bing bong.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that sound test too short? Well, how about this one?
Bing bong.
Oh, sorry. Sound test a little bit too short again. Howdy hey, I'm Hippotech, and last year, oh, that's weird to say, I tried a lot of different keyboards. At the very end of most of those videos, I put a sound test of what the keyboard sounds like. Now, in my opinion, sound tests are incredibly subjective, represent the room and the desk and the environment of the person that recorded it, and aren't necessarily that helpful for buying a keyboard. But if I didn't include one, you'd never watch my videos. So, in this video, I've taken every single video I made this year and compiled all of the sound tests. I've tried my best to include the info of every keyboard on screen for you, and I've also put links to every single video in the description down below. There's also going to be no talking for the rest of the video, so leave a comment of which one you like the best.
You'll get better when you're not blamed for a condition. Hello?
I tried the Rainy 75, and you should too. Why? And you should too? Howdy hey, I'm Hippiotech, and I tried over 50 keyboards this year. And let's just say, in my quest to find the best budget keyboards, this one might actually be it. And you might be thinking, wait, this seems really familiar to the Zoom 75 video. But what if I told you that this keyboard was $100 cheaper? For the whole keyboard? What? Yeah, we'll see about that. In this video, I'll be trying this very pretty keyboard, the Rainy 75, and I'll be putting it to the test to see if it's actually as good as it seems. Like, is this just a scam? And did I mention the twist? Because this keyboard is going to be entirely stock. I won't be doing any modding myself. Yes, even the stabilizers. Now you're probably thinking, Hippio, you're insane. That's insane. You can't build a custom keyboard without modding it. It's not gonna be good. Well, fine. What if I hit my villain arc? What if I removed all of the foam? What if I went crazy and didn't put any foam in this keyboard and it sounded really good? What? It's raining, like rain. you get the joke. So that intro was really long-winded, but this video definitely deserves your time because this keyboard could potentially ruin everything. Now this video is sponsored by Wobkey, however they did not review this video, they did not tell me what to say, and all of my thoughts are my own. Now I will have links down below, but please watch the whole video first. Now, in order to know how crazy this price point I'm about to tell you is, you have to know how expensive keyboards have been in the past. I remember I bought my first custom keyboard for $180 US for just the kit. So then how did they get the starting price for this at 89 bucks? What? Now, full disclosure, this thing is a Kickstarter, and I hate Kickstarters. That's it. I hate Kickstarters. Even though I thought this keyboard was really cool, I was gonna turn down this whole entire video, not make it, but then they told me, wait, we've actually been making them for the last couple months. And then I said, okay, prove it. And then they sent me a video of their whole entire factory and production, and that's actually quite a lot of keyboards already made. So essentially, they're kind of just using Kickstarter for marketing, which I think is a little bit cringe. I think they should have just finished the keyboards, but whatever. But then they told me, no, don't worry. After this, we're actually gonna keep it in stock and on Amazon. Now you have me interested. So let's get this board unboxed and then I'll talk about the Kickstarter a little bit more. First, the accessories are pretty bare bones. You get a basic cable, a keycap and switch puller, 3 mystery switches, which I'll talk about later, and a free floating dongle. Wait, is this thing wireless? You also get, believe it or not, a keyboard. Now, this whole thing was shipped to me pretty well. However, I did unbox it early to make sure that the keyboard was there and to try the keyboard to see if it was even worth making a video on. And wow, that's a long manual entirely in Chinese. Okay, never mind. The other side had English. They also make some pretty crazy claims, like like 2 milliseconds of wired delay and 3 milliseconds over wireless, but wow. That is a very pretty keyboard. Now, this is a 75% keyboard that comes as a fully built kit, and oh my god, that back weight, we'll talk about that more soon. However, if you checked out the link in the description, you are probably very confused, as there is a lot of different options for this board. Now, I tried my best to parse through this so I could help you make the best decision possible, if any at all. Now, first things first, this board starts at $89 US. However, that's only for 100 units, so it's effectively $99. So I'm gonna mentally add $10 to each price because the first 100 units only goes to 100 people. So the $89 version only comes in 2 colors, the black and silver, and you don't get RGB. The $99 version comes in silver, white, blue, and pink. You do get RGB, and you get these violet switches. And then, for $15 more, you get the Pro series. The main differences here being a different back weight, double the battery capacity, and JWIC white on black switches. Now, after all of that, you probably have a million questions. Which one do I get? Which one is the best? Which one is the thockiest? And I'll be looking at all of that soon. Now, the main version that I have here is the standard in Electro Blue. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love the color. And, that flex? We need to talk about it, but we'll talk about it later, don't worry. But first, let's talk about the most important difference, the switches. And yes, all versions of this board are hot swappable. If you buy the light or standard version of this board, then you get these violet HMX switches. And honestly, these really surprised me. Now, if you like tactile switches, you're kind of out of luck here because these linear switches are the only options. On top of that, they're a 45-gram operating force, which means they are pretty darn light to press. So the first point of contention here is, sure, this board is pre-built, but it's pre-built with a very specific set. Like, this might seem like a minor issue, but I'm not really sure what Wobkey was thinking here, because a huge amount of the community likes tactile and clicky switches. And sure, they can remove the switches and put in their own, but it's weird to just alienate them from the point of sales. Like, kind of bad. So that's definitely not for everyone, and that could be a huge con. What's not a huge con though is the RGB, and also yes, that was PE foam. Now for those of you that absolutely hate RGB, hey, save 10 bucks and don't get RGB. However, as someone that prefers light switches, I ended up really liking these switches overall. One thing that I'm kind of indifferent about is these keycaps. They're double shot PBT and they're fine quality, like maybe a $20 or $30 keycap set, but I really can't complain as part of a full keyboard kit. The easiest way to tell that these are cheap double shot PBT keycaps is the Shift space T. Other issues that I noticed is if you use this board not on a desk mat, you get a little bit space T. Other issue that these are cheap double shot PBT keycaps is the Shift space T. Other issues that I noticed is if you use this board not on a desk mat, you get a little bit of uneven case wobble, and the stabilizers were actually quite nice. But they are plate mounted? I never thought I'd say that. Nice plate mounted stabilizers. That's a first.
The future of your business is here. With Wix, you get advanced AI capabilities.
Now, these boards are CNC aluminum, and overall, the construction of them is really impressive. Now, I can't speak on how the quality control is going to be, and honestly, I would expect some dings and these keyboards not to be perfect, because they have to be cutting corners somewhere, right? But with the power of mass production, I mean, look at the back weight. That thing is absolutely incredible. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Hippio, why would you need a reflective glass back weight on your keyboard? That's really, nobody needs that. Well, what if you're on the way to a work meeting and you need to do your hair? I mean, what are you gonna do? Pull out your phone? Or you're on the way to the moonwalking championship. What are you gonna do? Not moonwalk? It's touches like this back weight that cheap boards like the Sea-Doo V75 are just lacking. And honestly, the construction of this is not very pingy. It was at this point that I was like, man, if they actually get this thing in stock, this will be insane. Speaking of insane, how does it sound? I mean, sound is subjective, but frankly, this thing is incredible. Having a marbly or thocky sound on a keyboard that costs $100 is genuinely insane, and I wish that was there 2 years ago. Like, I don't think you guys understand how crazy this is. Let me just show you one of the first keyboards I built that was probably like a $200 and something budget build at the time. Just listen to this. I was proud of this. But what about the other switches, Hippio? What about the JWICs? And this is where it gets a lot more interesting, because this board costs $15 more.
Oh, that is insane.
Now to me, it's definitely interesting that they made this premium offering to a budget keyboard. I mean, arguably an extra 15 bucks really isn't that insane, but it does make a visual change and a feel and sound change. Now, if you're someone with greasy fingers, I feel like this more premium silver weight is definitely harder to smudge, but it is less iconic than the glass weight on the other board. So which one do you think is better? Leave a comment. Now we're getting into very subjective territory, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. Granted, the rest of this video was also subjective territory, but you know what I mean. Now, JWIC switches have typically been known to be one of your more expensive switches. They aren't your cheapo 20 cent a switch things. So when I saw that the board was going to come with them, I thought, oh, that's pretty exciting. It's definitely going to be the best, right? Now they're a pretty standard factory lubed 50 gram bottom out linear switch, but I couldn't help but notice they had like just the tiniest bit of leaf ping that was kind of amplified when they were in the keyboard. Now they do actually sound deeper than the Violet switches, which kind of gives them a bit more of a thwack. However, in my opinion, I kind of ended up liking the Violets more. Because of that, I personally wouldn't buy the more expensive version, even though I prefer the weight on it. Now I'm going to be removing the foam soon, but let me give you a quick side-by-side and let me know what you think in the comments first. Now, as far as problems, go with this board, my number one problem is this gasket flex, and I need to figure out why it's so spotty and so weird. Now, of course, it's a $100 keyboard. There's going to be issues and corners cut, but it just feels weird having certain spots be kind of like flex hotspots. My first thought is maybe they just went a little bit out of control with flex cuts, so I'm gonna take this thing apart. Now, just like me, you might have noticed that this board has no screws, at least visibly. But after popping off a couple switches in strategic places, we reveal an on switch. That's right, yeah, this board is wireless. Every single version of this board is wireless and supports 2.4 gigahertz. It also supports VIA, which is an incredible keyboard programming software. Oh yeah, there's the screws, by the way, there's the screws. I didn't really know where to put in the software part. VIA is great, and a lot of budget keyboards don't actually have VIA, so there we go. Now, this quote-unquote screwless looking design is something that you see in more premium keyboards, as it gives the outside of your keyboard case a lot more of a clean, screwless look. However, it does make it a little bit harder modability-wise, as you have to remove the keycaps just to mod your keyboard. Speaking of mods, this keyboard does come shipped with foam, and these little, I'm gonna call them tadpole gaskets, because they remind me of the Geon Frog gaskets. Or maybe nipple gaskets? Nah, that might get me demonetized. They are a welcome change from the standard pour-on. There's also a little sheet on the bottom of your keyboard that prevents it from zapping itself. Please do not remove that. You also see the 3500 milliamp hour battery, and then a little weight where the other battery would be if you bought the more expensive version. Honestly, I kind of prefer the weight there though. Now, I got quite a lot of comments of people telling me that they want to see this board made without foam, and definitely ignore what I'm doing on screen. Do not do this yourself. It's dumb. However, I'm lazy. Because the keyboard hobby is incredibly subjective, there's people that like their boards with foam, and there's people that like their boards without foam. However, for some reason, the people that like their boards without foam are very, very passionate about it and think that they're superior to the people that like their boards with foam. I'd like to get it in their heads that it's actually a preference. Guys, remember that it's a preference. There is no superior way to build a keyboard, and if you think there is, you're just wrong. And there's our issue for why the board was so flexy in weird spots. They have flex cuts cut into the plate and the PCB. Generally, I don't mind flex cuts. However, I think with the polycarbonate plate on top of that, it kind of just leads to a bit of a hot spotty gasket performance rather than a nice even flex. But some people might like the hot spotty gasket performance, so who am I to judge? Now, with all of the foam removed, that's the plate foam, the PE foam, and the weird plastic layer foam, I can sandwich everything back together, and again, do not try this at home, I am lazy. The technique that I did has a very solid chance of popping a hot swap socket out. I'm fine if I need to resolder it, but you might not be. Then I put the board back into the case, with no case foam, by the way, and I'm very curious how this is gonna sound. Oftentimes with cheap aluminum boards, if you remove the foam, they will sound very, very pingy. This is one of the reasons why people have the foam makes boards worse mantra, because foam can be used to cover up bad boards. However, it can also be used to improve good ones, and holy moly, removing the foam actually made the gasket flex even more uneven. So I'd love to see them sell an option without the flex cuts in the future, as that's just my personal preference. This does make me wonder though, if I add back the case foam, can I balance out the flex but also keep the sound a little bit more clacky? So we're gonna try that in just a second. But first, here's the board with foam and without foam, before and after.
And I said, they are going to come after our guns, look for mass shootings. And then magically it happens, this is staged.
Now personally I think that's a little bit too clacky, but I'm curious what you think. Next I put the case foam back in, but left all of the plate foams out of the board. Let me know what you think of this. What I like about this board is there's a lot of room to explore whether you want more foam, less foam, different foams, and the fact that it's a solid base material makes it pretty good. Now, the sale for this keyboard opens on, I think, the 26th of December, and they're expecting an end of January/February ship time for anyone that buys the boards, which is honestly pretty respectable if they actually go through with it. But what you're probably wondering is, how does this compare to other boards like the Zoom 75? Well, personally, I prefer the finish on the Zoom 75, and the aesthetic of the Zoom 75 is definitely a bit more unique. There's also something that I can't quite place that makes the Zoom 75 feel slightly more premium. Maybe it's cope. I think it could honestly just be cope. However, they were last selling it for $210 US, so that's $100 more just for the bare bones kit, not including keycaps or switches. Now, if you're not on a budget, I recommend you explore as many options as possible to find a keyboard that fits your perfect desired needs. Whether it be a Zoom 75 or a Satisfaction 75 or a Saber board, I don't care. And whether it be a Zoom 75 or a Satisfaction board that fits your perfect desired needs. Whether it be a Zoom 75 or a Satisfaction 75 or a Saber board, I don't care. And you're probably wondering whether or not you should join the Kickstarter for this board. Personally, I say no. Wait the 3 months and buy it in stock. If you're impatient and want to gamble on a Kickstarter, Granted, they say they're going to deliver, but I'm always a little bit skeptical. But I do think that this keyboard genuinely changes everything, and it's gonna raise a couple of interesting questions. Like, if someone can get into the hobby with a pre-built keyboard that's better than a lot of people's custom keyboards, that's gonna cause a lot of friction and a lot of cope and a lot of angry people. Like, better is in air quotes there, like, it's all subjective anyways, but you kind of get what I mean here, right? Like, at its price point, I had a really hard time finding any issues with this board. Like, you can nitpick, and then you realize its price. And you can be mad about this, and then you realize its price. Now, assuming that this board is going to be like $130 once it's in stock, is it worth it? Yeah. Yeah, it's still insane. Even at like $130 as an in-stock board, it's crazy. The whole entire build quality and switch quality and keycap quality is just better than like your Keychron Q Pros, and those are even more. So, you know what? This is my new best budget keyboard for now.
This is not just another E-Class, because it evolves with you.
It adapts to